I gave them 25 years, every spreadsheet, every sleepless night, every ounce of loyalty. Then one morning they fired me without a word of thanks. 3 months later they came crawling back, but not for an apology. For 25 years I walked into that office at 8:00 a.m. sharp, coffee in one hand, briefcase in the other. Same desk, same routine, same quiet pride in keeping the company's books clean. I was never the loudest guy in the room, never cared for office politics. Numbers made sense to me. People didn't always. I started there when I was just 24, fresh out of college, eager, hungry to prove myself. Over time, I became the guy everyone trusted with the hard questions. Payroll issues? Call me. Budget problems? I had a spreadsheet for that. I wasn't flashy, but I was steady. Reliable. The kind of person you'd want handling your money. And they knew it, at least I thought they did. The CFO even once called me the backbone of the department. That stuck with me for years. I wore it like a badge of honor. I'd seen people come and go, hotshots who thought they knew it all, new hires who lasted 6 months, but I stayed. Through recessions, mergers, and even one near bankruptcy. I held the line when others bylaid. I didn't ask for much, just respect. Maybe a handshake when I retired. But lately, something felt off. The new leadership didn't look me in the eye the same way. Meetings I used to be part of happened behind closed doors. They brought in outside consultants, kids who looked like they still lived with their parents, and started changing systems I'd designed. I told myself it was just a phase. Change is normal. I wasn't worried. But deep down, a quiet unease had started growing. I brushed it off. After all, I'd given them everything. Surely that counted for something. Still, I found myself staying later than usual, double-checking my work, almost trying to prove I was still needed. I told my wife it was just a busy season. She believed me. I think I believed me too. Looking back now, maybe that was the first sign. Not a slap to the face, just a soft pull, like a thread coming loose. I didn't know it yet, but the fabric of everything I'd built was about to unravel. It was a Thursday. I remember because payroll had just gone out the day before, and I was double-checking quarterly numbers. Everything looked solid, tight, clean, just the way I liked it. That's when I got the email. Please come to conference room B at 3:00 p.m. HR. No subject line, no explanation, just that. I stared at it for a moment, my stomach tightened. Maybe it was just a routine check-in. Maybe they wanted to get my thoughts on the new software integration. I'd been vocal about how clunky it was. Still, something didn't sit right. At 2:58, I walked down the hall, heart pounding like a slow drumbeat in my chest. When I opened the door, they were already there. Janet from HR, the new CFO, and some guy I didn't recognize, probably legal. They didn't even pretend to smile. Please sit down. No small talk, no how's your day going. The CFO cleared his throat. After careful consideration, we've decided to eliminate your position, effective immediately. My ears rang. For a second I thought I'd misheard. What? My voice cracked. You're letting me go. It's not personal, Janet added quickly, her tone flat and rehearsed. Just restructuring budget priorities. 25 years, gone in a sentence. I felt the heat rise in my face. My hands shook under the table. I've done everything you ever asked. I trained half the team. We appreciate your service, the CFO said, already glancing at his watch. You'll receive a severance package. It will escort you out in 20 minutes. That was it. No thank you, no handshake. Just a cardboard box and a guy from tech watching me as I packed my things. As I walked past my old desk, my second home for 2.5 decades, no one said a word. Some looked away, others pretended to type. The worst part wasn't losing the job. It was how easy it was for them, like I was a piece of outdated equipment they'd finally tossed out. I stepped into the elevator, clutching my box like it was all I had left. And for the first time in 25 years, I had no idea where I was going. The drive home felt like a blur. I must have hit every red light, but I barely noticed. My hands gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. In the passenger seat, that stupid cardboard box sat quietly, holding my stapler, my mug, a photo of my kids from when they were little, my entire career reduced to office clutter. When I walked through the door, my wife was in the kitchen, humming as she stirred something on the stove. I wanted to stay outside, pretend I was still the man I was that morning. But the door creaked and she turned. Hey, you're home early, everything okay? I couldn't answer right away. I just set the box down on the table. She looked at it, then at me. "No," she whispered, "they didn't." "They did," my voice broke. She came to me right away, wrapping her arms around me like she could hold me together. But I was already coming apart. The next few days were a fog. I barely got out of bed. I kept replaying the meeting in my head, every word, every blank expression. 25 years and not even a goodbye lunch. I couldn't shake the humiliation. I'd been so proud, so certain I mattered. Now I wasn't sure who I was without that job. The house felt too quiet, too still. I'd built a life around routine, and now there was nothing to do. No emails, no reports, just silence and my own voice telling me I had failed. The bills didn't stop. The mortgage, the utilities, the college fund for our youngest. They didn't care that I'd been restructured. My wife tried to stay positive, reminding me I had skills, experience, people who believed in me. But I couldn't see it. All I saw was the man who got kicked to the curb like he was nothing. One night I sat alone in the living room, staring at the dark TV screen. I remember whispering, "What now?" into the quiet. That's when my daughter walked in and sat beside me. She didn't say much, just held my hand. And somehow that quiet gesture pulled me back from the edge. I wasn't okay, not yet, but maybe I wasn't alone. The hardest part wasn't losing the job. It was losing the version of myself I'd spent 25 years becoming. Without that routine, without the early mornings and full inboxes, I felt like a ghost in my own home. I wasn't the provider anymore. I wasn't the dependable one in the office. I was just here. My wife suggested I take some time for myself. Rest, breathe, maybe even enjoy the break. So I tried. I took morning walks. I read books I'd once stacked on my nightstand and promised to finish someday. I even dusted off my old guitar, hadn't touched it in years. But none of it filled the hole. None of it answered the question echoing in my mind, who am I if I'm not their accountant anymore? At night I lay awake thinking about all the time I'd given them. All the birthdays I'd missed, the family dinners I'd cut short, telling myself, just this one time. All for what? A cold goodbye in a cardboard box. Still, I couldn't live in that bitterness forever. One morning I opened my laptop and started looking at job listings. The titles blurred together: senior financial analyst, accounting lead, controller. I submitted a few applications, brushed up my resume, even reached out to some old contacts. The silence was deafening. No callbacks, no interviews. Weeks passed and still nothing. I was overqualified, undernetworked, or too old. At least that's how it felt. One night after another rejection email, I sat with my wife on the porch. "Maybe I'm just done," I muttered. "Maybe nobody wants what I have anymore." She looked at me not with pity, but something firmer. "You're not done. You're just not meant to go back. You know numbers better than anyone. Start something, on your own terms." I wanted to argue, but the idea lingered. The next day, I opened a blank document and typed 3 words at the top: freelance financial consultant. I stared at them for a long time. It wasn't a job title, not yet, but maybe it was a beginning. Starting over was terrifying. I had no office, no clients, no business cards, just a laptop, a resume, and 25 years of experience I wasn't even sure counted anymore. Still, I pushed forward. I built a simple website, nothing flashy, just enough to say, I exist, I can help. I called myself a financial consultant. It sounded better than laid off or starting over. I listed my services: bookkeeping, cleanup, audit preparation, small business tax support. I had no idea if anyone would care, but it was something. My first client came through an old friend, Sam, who ran a family bakery downtown. "I can't afford a full-time accountant," he told me, "but I'm drowning in receipts, and I think the IRS is about to send me a nasty letter." I didn't hesitate. For the first time in months, I felt alive. I stayed up late organizing his books, finding expenses he hadn't claimed, cleaning up years of messy records. When I handed him the final report, he looked at me like I'd just saved his business. "You're a wizard," he laughed. That small win sparked something in me. I updated my site with a real testimonial. I even posted on LinkedIn, something I hadn't touched in years. Slowly, referrals started coming in. A local mechanic, a freelance photographer, a nonprofit drowning in donation records. But it wasn't all smooth. Some nights I stared at my bank account and wondered if I'd made a huge mistake. The paychecks were small, inconsistent, And every time I opened my email, a part of me still hoped to see a corporate offer, something stable, something that felt like the old me. Then one afternoon, I got a call from a client I didn't recognize by name. He said he heard about me through the bakery. He ran a growing logistics company, small but expanding fast. "We need someone sharp," he said. "Someone who knows how to clean up books before things get messy." It was the biggest contract I'd ever been offered on my own. I hung up the phone, heart pounding. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was a second chance. 2 months later, business was finally picking up. I wasn't getting rich, but I was stable. I had a handful of regular clients, and for the first time since being fired, I felt like I had some control over my life again. Then I saw it. I was sorting through my emails when a subject line caught my eye. "Request for IRS audit support, urgent." That wasn't unusual. Since tax season was closing in, these kinds of messages were becoming more common. But when I opened it and saw the company name, my heart stopped. Monroe Logistics Corporation. My old company. The one that fired me without warning. The one that stripped me of my identity and sent me home with a box. I blinked, wondering if it was a mistake. Maybe it was a coincidence, but no, it was them. The message was from someone I didn't know, some new controller, probably the one who replaced me. They wrote that their financials were under IRS review and that they were seeking immediate outside consulting, specifically someone with experience in audit prep and historical reconciliation. My experience? They had no idea the man they were emailing was the same man they'd escorted out of the building 10 months ago. I sat back in my chair, the old feelings rushing in bitterness, humiliation, anger. They had discarded me like I was nothing, and now they needed me. I could have deleted the email right there. Part of me wanted to, let them drown in the mess they'd made. But another part of me, when I hadn't heard from in a while, felt calm, almost curious. I reread the message. Then I looked around at the office I'd built in the corner of our spare room. My name on the door, my terms, my business. I cracked my knuckles and began typing. "Thank you for reaching out. I'd be happy to schedule a discovery call. Please send over your preliminary audit documents so I can review your situation in detail." I hit send, and just like that, the man they fired was now the man they were about to answer to. The following week, I found myself standing in front of the same glass building I had walked out of almost a year ago, with a box in my hands and a hole in my chest. Only this time, I wasn't carrying a box. I was carrying leverage. They had booked a consulting session in person. "It'll be easier to go over the files with you here," the email had said, and I agreed. I wanted to see their faces. Walking through those doors again stirred something deep in me. The lobby still smelled like polished tile and printer paper. Same receptionist, though she didn't recognize me right away. Maybe I just looked different, older, or maybe stronger. They led me upstairs to a glass-walled conference room. It was eerie how little had changed. The chairs, the artwork on the wall, even the hum of the AC. But I wasn't the same man sitting at this table now. The new controller, Adam, fresh-faced and clearly overwhelmed, was already waiting. Next to him sat the CFO. The CFO. He looked up from the folder in front of him and paused. His face twitched with recognition. "You're Marcus." I smiled politely. "Marcus Hill, yes, you reached out for audit support." His jaw tightened. "Yes, well, we didn't realize it would be you." I gathered that. I took a seat, opened my laptop, and began pulling up the documents they'd sent. "Shall we get started?" The tension in the room was thick. Adam fumbled with the files, clearly unaware of the history. The CFO said little, letting me guide the conversation. I asked questions, pointed, precise, and calm. With every word, I reminded him who I was without saying it outright. As I reviewed their numbers, it became obvious. They were in trouble. Bad records, sloppy reporting, gaps that screamed for attention, the kind of thing I would have caught years ago. The CFO cleared his throat. "We could offer you something more permanent again if you're open to it." I looked up at him, eyes steady. "I'm not looking for employment. I run my own firm now, but I'll help you for the right rate." He nodded tight-lipped. He had no choice. They needed me. I wasn't here for revenge, but I was here to remind them. You don't discard value and expect it to disappear. They sent over the full files the next day, hundreds of pages of disorganized spreadsheets, mismatched invoices, and half-completed tax forms. It was a mess, and it didn't take long to confirm what I suspected. Whoever had taken over after me wasn't qualified, not even close. There were glaring errors in basic bookkeeping, payroll miscalculations, vendor payments that had no documentation. Someone had even classified furniture as software purchases. I almost laughed, almost. But this wasn't funny. The IRS didn't laugh, and if they were auditing, it meant someone had tipped them off or found a serious discrepancy. I worked long hours in my little home office. Coffee by my side, notes everywhere, the glow of my screen burning into the night. My wife would peek in now and then, asking if I needed anything. I'd just shake my head. This was personal. I needed to see it through. While sorting through their quarterly filings, I came across a report I'd written 2 years ago. It still had my watermark on it, my layout, my formatting, even my notes in the margins. They had reused it without my name, passed it off like someone else had prepared it. That stung, but it also reminded me why they were struggling now. They hadn't just replaced me, they had erased me, and now they were paying for that decision. After 2 weeks of cleanup, I put together a recovery plan, corrected statements, IRS-ready documentation, a full breakdown of every discrepancy. I sent it to them with a cover letter and an invoice that, honestly, was more than fair, given what they would have faced in penalties. An hour later, the CFO called me personally. "This is thorough," he admitted. "I take pride in my work," I said calmly. There was a pause. "We appreciate this. Really, I know we didn't part on the best terms." "No," I said, "you didn't." Another pause. "If you ever reconsider about coming back." "I won't," I replied, "but I'll keep you on as a client." I could feel him swallow that one. This wasn't about ego. It wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity, and getting back everything they thought they could take from me without a second thought. A few days after I submitted the final audit package, something unexpected happened. My phone started ringing more. It began with a small logistics firm on the outskirts of town. They said they'd heard I helped Monroe avoid a disaster. Then a friend of a former colleague called, asking if I could take a look at their nonprofit's financials before they applied for a grant. Each call was the same, polite, respectful, even a little urgent. Word had spread. I didn't advertise, I didn't need to. In quiet circles of local business owners and financial officers, my name had become a kind of whispered recommendation. "Call Marcus," they'd say. "He knows what he's doing. He fixes what others can't." I wasn't just cleaning up messes anymore. I was building trust, one client at a time. But it wasn't just the work. Something inside me had shifted. I wasn't chasing after validation like I had in the beginning. I wasn't trying to prove something to the people who let me go. I was building something for me now. That realization settled deep in my chest like peace. Not pride, not arrogance, just peace. Then one afternoon, I saw a post on LinkedIn from Monroe Logistics. "Thanks to our trusted consultant Marcus Hill, our audit was resolved successfully, and our systems are stronger than ever." They tagged my business. That post brought in 5 new inquiries within 24 hours. I stared at the screen for a while, reading the comments. People congratulating them, others tagging colleagues, some even asking for referrals. And there it was, my name in bold attached to success, not buried in the footnotes of a report, not behind closed doors in a boardroom, out in the open. I didn't go back to my old job. I outgrew it. That evening, I sat on the porch with my wife, the same one where I'd once told her I felt finished. "You built all this," she said, her head resting on my shoulder. I smiled. "I just cleaned up some numbers." She nudged me. "No, you finally counted yourself in." I used to think the best thing about my job was the security. The routine, the predictable salary, the structure. I held onto those things like a shield, telling myself they were what made me valuable. But the truth is, I let that job define me. I gave it everything. And when they let me go, I thought they'd taken everything in return. But now, sitting at my desk in the office I built with my own hands, I see it all differently. I wasn't just an accountant. I wasn't just a man behind spreadsheets and tax codes. I was someone who made things work. Someone people trusted with the mess, the chaos, the pieces no one else could put back together. I was never just an employee. I was the engine, and they didn't realize that until it was almost too late. I still consult for Monroe from time to time on my terms. The CFO is polite now, careful with his words. Every email starts with Marcus and ends with thank you. Sometimes I wonder if he remembers the way they treated me that day when they stripped me of my badge and shuffled me out the back like I didn't matter. It doesn't haunt me anymore. I let that go. What matters now is what I've built. I have clients who see me, respect me, people who call not because they're desperate, but because they believe in what I do. I even hired a part-time assistant, a young guy named Jard, fresh out of school. I see a bit of my younger self in him, hungry, quiet, sharp. He asked me the other day, "How did you end up starting your own firm?" I smiled. Someone reminded me of what I was worth right after someone else forgot. That's the thing about being underestimated. It hurts until you use it as fuel. Now every morning when I sit down at my desk, I don't ask who am I anymore. I know. I'm Marcus Hill, financial consultant, business owner, the guy they once let go. And the man they had to come back to. Because value doesn't vanish. It just waits to be seen.